Great to be with all of you, and I just wanted to mention that Tessa, you asked the question of saying, okay, what can we do in the universities, the colleges, the teaching, and this session is the art and science of teaching, and I just have to say first, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Katherine at Smith College has the coolest thing I think will come up today is that she has an app on Shakespeare. I don't know what the connection is to data science, but you're going to provide it this morning.
I can do that.
But you're going to have to tell us where to download it. But it's an interactive app with Shakespeare, which is in the Folger library thing. So that's totally cool. And I just want to say my hat's off. But let me start off, Eduardo. I know that you are just in the spirit of full transparency. You're on the board of BHEF, and just want to put that on the table. But you also run one of the largest community college system in America. And you and I have had opportunities to talk before. And as I've seen Miami-Dade, you have created pockets of opportunity just virtually in almost every corner. And I guess what I'm interested in this morning is a huge turnout this morning for an early morning in Washington, D.C., where most people are still struggling to get into their 10 a.m. Hill meetings or whatever. But so this is obviously a priority here. But how does it weight for you as a priority given the vast number of things that you have in the largest system? Where does data science, data analytics, building this capacity fit within Eduardo Padrón's universe?
Well, it's extremely important because as far as I'm concerned, data analytics is taking over the world. There is not a single business or industry that doesn't depend on analytics to basically conduct their business. It's a smart way to do it. You need to have information. You need to make decisions based on good data, and data analytics provides that. We have created a lot of opportunities. In talking before we came in to Katherine and Freeman, I was telling them that we're working our way to make data analytics a requirement for every major, every discipline, because I really feel that it applies everywhere. So that's important. It's not only having the baccalaureate in data science, but making sure that it's widespread and all the students are exposed to it, because they're going to need it. And what we find is not only the 18 and 19-year-old students coming into the school, but there are a lot of people in the workforce that in order to keep their jobs, in order to really advance in their jobs, they need to have the knowledge that is necessary today to be useful to the employer. So what we find is a lot of people coming back to school to try to get the skills that are necessary. And we're putting together boot camps and all kind of programs to provide them with that knowledge.
Are people jumping at it? Or are they looking at, oh, wow, Eduardo's going to come force us to do all of this? I mean,
no.
Are they resisting, or are they swimming, gleefully along towards these programs?
I find that people, the more they know about this, the more they want to do it, because they know that the demand in the jobs is real. And it's important, and for us it's even more important because we have employers that not only are looking for people with the skills, but they are looking for people, diverse population of well-trained employees. And that's what we specialize in. Most of the students that we are putting into these programs come from minority groups, come from underrepresented groups. And that's really providing them a significant edge in getting the jobs that are needed and supporting their communities and really advancing in the field.
Freeman and Katherine, you both run large schools, and you've created institutional commitments to data science that are deep in whole programs, majors, and degrees. Let me just ask you both: Are people jumping at this, or are they finding this a novelty? Because I think part of it, after the last session, what you get is we're trying to shift the equilibrium where the perceived value, the incentive structure to get more people going down this track. And I'm interested in, from your perspective, when you're kind of bringing this in to the university environment, and go back to Tessa's question, how do you get people to want what you're now offering?
It's gone faster at Smith than I've seen any change in curriculum. We have a major that's in statistical and data sciences that's a year old. There are 86 students in the entry class, the intro class, and There are a couple of reasons why it started so quickly. One was we had a wonderful partnership with Mass Mutual,
Right.
a real alignment. As Eduardo is saying, there's an enormous opportunity for women of color, for women, for first-generation students in this field. It's wide open as a STEM field in a way that many STEM fields are not. I can talk about that in a little, but we found that it matched a liberal arts curriculum extraordinarily well because the toolkit is really three things. It's technical knowledge in programming, computational modeling. It's facility with statistics and math. So those are the sort of 2/3 between those two of our major. But it also requires domain knowledge in any field, humanities, social sciences, the sciences. And a full third of our major is that domain knowledge. We have faculty rotating through our intro course from the humanities and the social sciences, and the sciences partnering with the STEM faculty who can teach computational modeling and statistics. And there are probably, I think you may see this, there's two kinds of jobs our students are going into from here. One is, I'm a data scientist, and I'm going to go work for Google or in the tech sector. But far more common, and I suspect represented in this room, is I'm a history major, econ, English, gov. I got a job in a think tank or in media. And I am the most technical person on my team because I took a stats course. And so everyone on my team wants me to do the analysis of all the data that's coming to us, uncurated, unsystematically gathered. And I've got more skills than anybody else does in this area, but I'm not really trained to bridge that important question in our field and the data that we have. So our major is designed to have students practice that bridging work between partnering with domain experts. That's the work they're going to be doing when they go into the workforce. They will partner with domain experts.
Freeman?
Yeah, I agree completely with my colleagues. I want us to think about revamping the culture in not just in higher education, but in our country. We were all trained to think about coming up with a hypothesis, and then you test the hypothesis. Well, no, today, more and more, we're going to be looking at the data and determining the hypotheses from the data. It's a very different approach. And so whether talking about the coursework, and for us, half of our students are in STEM. You start there. From 100 countries, but the humanities, the social sciences, data science across the board. One of my recent PhD graduates is now head of data science at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. And what I would say is this, that whether we're talking about people who will be quant types at T. Rowe Price, or we're talking about people in cybersecurity at the National Security Agency, so from financial to healthcare, any sector of society, we're going to need people trained in these areas, and the level of training will depend on that person's sophistication with stat and programming and computing. Perhaps the most exciting program I could mention, undergrad through PhD, would be a middle school program for girls in programming and yoga, if you can imagine. Now, when they laugh, I'd say you'd be surprised who's sponsoring that program. It's the National Security Agency. Why? Because we need many more women who are well prepared to come in and take advantage
Wait a minute,
of this.
this is a tweetable moment. So the NSA is sponsoring
Yeah.
and yoga at UMBC?
At UMBC and in programming, because we have far too few women majoring in computer science. We've gone from 36% of the women in our country who are of the majors in computer science being women in the 80s down to 18% today. So I mean, fundamentally, unlike other countries where you've got half the population who are in technical areas being women, in our country, under 20% of those trained as techie types, and start there, computer sciences, are women. But secondly, with this data science, it's not simply a matter of the computer science major or the statistics major. It is people who can use the domain, whether it's in literature, with text and evaluating the text, or for us in digital humanities or imaging and digital arts. You know, in all those disciplines, we need people with grounding in data science. And the way we've been able to get more and more people understanding that everybody should be doing this is you look at the jobs that are available today. They require more and more understanding of data science.
Is NSA sponsoring a programming and spinning class?
Well,
or,
let's say this. Now, you see, you put the emphasis on the wrong thing. The emphasis was on the programming. Get the tweet right. Yoga is, and the reason for the yoga, quite frankly, is that it builds confidence.
Let me ask you another question. I know you were on a major advisory board
Yes.
on national education
Yes.
For African Americans with President Obama. When you were there and you would raise these issues, what is the, I mean, because partially the three of you are here today to kind of give us a snapshot
Sure.
of what's going on in the kind of broad universe. How does, again, I guess the same question that I ask Eduardo is, to what degree is this looked at as a key priority at higher education, and how are, and what's the performance of various universities and colleges around the country in moving in this direction? Is it uneven? Is it ambitious? Is it, and be honest.
There are two things I would say. Eduardo and I are partners in this work. He chairs the commission, the White House Commission on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. I do for African Americans, and I was enjoying Katherine's expertise in looking at women in these issues. So these three groups, if you think about it, represent a major part of our population. I would say this about the work that we did. We saw the important role of, first of all, of pre-K as being critical to everything else in our society. But the reason I brought up the middle school work is that one of the challenges we face is that 2/3 of Americans who begin with a major in STEM are wiped out, end up not succeeding. And you say it's a K through 12 problem. That's a part of it. But the other part of the problem is that, quite frankly, it's almost counterintuitive. The higher the test scores, the more prestigious the university, the greater the probability that someone who begins in STEM will leave it within the first year or two, because the student gets a C in chemistry and leaves it immediately. And so we have a big problem with only 5% of Americans with bachelor's degrees in the natural sciences and engineering. You start there. And when you think about data science, you have to think about those who are going to be very quantitative and technical, and then others who will be broadly educated with the data science.
So how would you shift those
And so what
signals?
we've worked to do is to redesign the teaching and learning process and to change our mindset. The problem, and I say this as a mathematician for over 40 years, the problem in STEM is that so many of us, and I say this in my TED Talk, so many of us in STEM think that STEM is only for a few people. We tend to think that if you're not really good, and then the other part of the problem is, if I ask this audience the question, how many of you knew by the time you were in the 11th grade that you either a math science type or you are history English type?
Let's just ask,
Well, how many of you by the time you're in the 11th grade, you were the math science type or you were history English and arts
This is
type?
an audience that would be, look, it's all math science.
And now you got a few nerds like her and me who like both of them. A few nerds like that. But most people are going to say exactly what you said. And it's because we actually push kids to think that way, that if you don't get it like that, it's not for you, you see?
Katherine?
So the three of us could talk for a very long time about underrepresentation of minorities, of women, of immigrants, of first-generation
Yes,
students
sure.
in STEM fields. I think one of the things that's really important here is that if you look at stats, that's been far more hospitable to women historically than computer science has. Its culture, like computer science, is, though, relatively stable. Data science is wide open. It's wide open professionally in all of the industries represented in this room. It's an emerging job. It's a job that's open to be defined. It's a culture that's open to be defined in higher ed as well. And so we see at Smith an enormous opportunity right now to shape what the culture of data science will be, and to have women and women of color leading that process of establishing a culture of data science. I think you're thinking in the same ways.
Absolutely, and part of the issue is that, for the longest time, we institutions have worked very much in isolation of the real world.
Right.
And so we have the well-deserved ivory tower designation. What I find today, which is very, very encouraging, is the fact that the disconnect that has existed between business and higher education, we're getting closer together. My Bachelor of Science in Data Science was only made possible through a significant collaboration with industry. In more ways than one, not only the development of the curriculum, but also in terms of providing internship opportunities for the students, identifying faculty, having faculty on loan from business to teach in the program, and a number of other things that really made it possible for us to have a program that is really conducive to the student having real opportunities for jobs. And that has made all the difference in the world. It really has a potential positive impact on the faculty. And these are programs like any other program that needs constant updating. The world is moving so fast that what you create today, 2 years from now, may not be necessarily what you need to be teaching. So being able to constantly be updating the curriculum requires constant communication with business and industry. And that kind of collaboration we're seeing more and more at institutions, and I think it's a welcome change, because after all, we're all on this together. And the demand and the supply have to meet at some point and make sure that we're making sense.
Let me ask, I like, Freeman, how you framed this issue about in the future we're going to be drawing our hypotheses from data sets. If there were to be a data set that looked at what all of you have talked about, which is the interaction of the business community with these needs and whatever, and you were to look at that, not have your hypothesis on how it should work, but actually you have this data set, what hypothesis would you be able to draw on what's working and going well, what's not working and going well? Because part of it is there's this generic idea that business engagement is good. Sure. Well, I imagine whenever I hear that, there's some business engagement that's good and there's some business engagement that doesn't work right. Or the rigidity of the educational institution may be such that it's not able to work in that. So what are the factors that actually help you dial up or dial down the efficacy of that interaction?
Let's start this way. I think one of the challenges in higher ed, and having been in higher ed for 40-some years, I can say this, is that sometimes we don't listen to what employers need. My colleagues here get it, and they are working with a variety, but it's important to start by saying, well, what are the needs? What do we even mean by data science? It's so easy to use that term, but when you think about the intersection of computing and statistics and analytics, you can have various levels of quantitative sophistication involved there, for example, or various levels of program experiences needed. And what I would say is that the extent to which people are effective in helping people get jobs will be the extent to which they have listened carefully to what employers say they need. Now, a part of it is this broad education that I think is important. If we teach people through the liberal arts to think critically and to be able to ask good questions, we can listen then to what employers are looking for, and different types of jobs in data science will require different levels of sophistication, whether in computing or in statistical method, mathematical modeling, whether I'm talking about the T. Rowe Price people or I'm talking about people in cybersecurity at National Security Agency. We need to understand what different jobs will mean.
Or BLS.
Yeah, it's very important. And so the analytics.
Are you hiring?
There's a hiring freeze.
A hiring freeze, yeah.
But they, well,
I've been trying to keep politics out.
Let me just say this: we cannot. Northrop Grumman is one of our.
On BLS to get political.
Northrop Grumman, Wes Bush, who's also on the Business Higher Education, has said he wants to double the number of students from our campus right now. Okay, we got 1,100 people at the NSA. We can't give them enough people. Whether it's Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, T. Rowe, they're all hiring as many people as we put out, and it's not just people in computer science. They are people in a broad areas. I will tell you that I have more humanities graduates who are now chief information officers than computer science graduates. Why? They took some courses in data science and in computing information systems, and they can talk to people. The big problem I'm trying to get my computer science majors understanding is nobody understands techie talk. If you talk too techie, then people get intimidated. So you need the combination of skills.
Is that right, Brian? Yeah.
I will just echo what's been said here. We think that data sciences matches so well with a liberal arts college because essentially this is a field of critical thinking with data. Right? You need to understand what are the important questions. To know that, you need to work with domain experts who have those driving questions, and the data will never match the questions
And that gets
perfectly.
us to the Shakespeare app.
Oh, I knew you were going to do that.
But I mean, I think part of the question is when you are in the liberal arts environment, so I've been involved with Washington College and Dickinson College, and these kind of classic liberal arts colleges and universities are all struggling with exactly this issue because they're sort of in this middle ground where liberal arts is somehow in a way, like the divisions in campus between the STEM arena and everything else they're big walls. And I think they're beginning to come down. But I take it that you would not have been somebody in the audience that said you were a math and science type when you were younger,
She
right?
could have been either one.
I was both.
Really?
I flip-flop.
Yeah, but for the Shakespeare aficionado, what is the pathway into this topic?
I'll give you a Shakespeare-based answer, and then I want to come back to the partnership with industry, because that's one of the things that's launched our majors so quickly
Right.
at Smith, but I think I can connect them. Michael Whitmore at the Folger Library, the director of the Folger Library here in DC, is one of the leaders in this field of using quantitative analysis to answer questions that the humanities have been really interested in for a long time. New kinds of evidence and new modes of investigation are available to us when we can use machines to help us read texts. So the Folgers created a wonderful, the digital standard edition of Shakespeare's plays. It's up online, it's open and accessible. And Michael and some colleagues have been studying how genres change, how tragedy, comedy, history are distinct but also mashed up by Shakespeare. And in that study, we can get kinds of evidence that human beings aren't very good at finding. So we've been great as literary scholars at studying character types, big macro phenomena, how those cluster by genre, or really exquisite instances, whether Prospero uses a single word, wife, or wise in The Tempest, and how that matters. But what we're not good at as human beings is reading patterns that are intermittent but persistent over time or large scale. And machines are really, really good at that. So for a Shakespeare
So there
scholar,
is a data analytics for Shakespeare.
there absolutely
class, yeah.
is. For a Shakespeare scholar to bring that body of evidence together with those other two kinds of evidence that humans are good at gives us an enormous capacity to begin to ask new kinds of questions about how genres change or how they infuse each other and integrate. So there's your Shakespeare
That's
answer.
great. And then you had a business.
So, but the key there is, what are the interesting questions? What are the important questions, the critical path questions to thinking about, if you're a Shakespeare scholar, how genres change? And it's only domain experts that really know that. Computer scientists coming to Shakespeare's plays will typically say, I can count how many of X words there are. But that kind of doesn't matter because we've been doing that in Shakespeare studies for a really long time.
Eduardo, sorry.
So this is what I'm going to say. Finding that important question means bridging into the different disciplines and industries. And that's why Eduardo's right, that the partnership, a really close collaboration, like Smith's with Mass Mutual, is the thing that allows us to redirect our curriculum in ways that are going to be useful.
Eduardo, are you ready to teach a Moneyball for Shakespeare class down in Miami-Dade?
Well, I'm in conversation with Katherine to see how much talent we can borrow from her institution.
The person who launched our major is started his career working in Major League Baseball as a statistician.
Eduardo,
And
let me...
we lured him away.
Before I go to the audience, Eduardo, let me just ask you, because all of you have been on so many advisory commissions, but again, to ask the question that I asked the previous panel, there's a certain gravitational force in which the relevance and importance of this topic is rising. But every projection that I've read about this shows this an amazing talent deficit, this gap. And so it sort of seems that everything we're doing is not enough. So what would you do more of to actually address the gap that seems to be of deep concern?
Well, there is a deficit of understanding in the overall population. If potential students do not really understand what this is all about, it's going to be very difficult to really engage them. But overall, I think there is some positive signs. You mentioned BHEF before, the Business Higher Ed Forum. Before I joined the forum, I always read about, the skills gap and all these things, especially in data analytics, etc. But it didn't become real to me until I would go to the BHEF forums and meetings and really have conversations with CEOs and hear the real challenges they're facing in trying to find the people with the right talent for their business. And that really opened my mind in terms of the potential of collaboration and really coming together to be part of the solution of the problem. There is a significant gap right now. McKinsey and others have made projections for 2018, well close to 200,000 jobs that need to be filled in the whole area of data analytics. And I think more and more institutions are beginning to realize that there is a role for them to play and there is a need for them to do that. It's all about leadership, really. And you have people here who have been leaders, who are always in the forefront of working with whoever they have to work with in order to do that for their students and for the communities they are serving. But I feel as programs like these have an impact in the audience, and a lot of people listen, and that's how you get the word out. Otherwise, ignorance is our worst enemy.
I would just say, one of my editorial prerogative here that again, going around the country as the Atlantic has done and interacted with a lot of communities and having met many parents who really worry about the pathway for their children and where to go, is sometimes it's important to vision out what a life in this looks like, and I'm not sure enough of that happens. But
you know what I say to parents all the time when they're thinking about UMBC? I say this: if your son or daughter comes to UMBC and they take our advice and we get them involved in internships, we promise you that when they graduate, they will not have to come home and live with you. Parents love that because they have plans for that room, all right? I would say that one of the partnerships I tell people to look at is ours with Northrop Grumman. Wes Bush gets it, the CEO, and it involves a multi-level partnership. He gets the point about women in technology, so we have women cyber scholars who are that he's helping to fund. Right? We also work with them and their engineers and computer scientists at an inner city school, teaching them about STEAM and the arts and humanities together, and then the idea of partnering with them on the research for cybersecurity all the way over to data science. So you want institutions that are connecting with employers in such a way that there's a multi-level relationship.
Yeah, and not only universities are getting the message, but I think business is getting the message.
Yes,
and for example, in Florida, that was the case with us, and we were able to join with a major Nexera, which is the major energy provider in Florida. To date, our bachelor's in data science is the only bachelor in data science in the whole state of Florida, the third largest state in the nation. And that's how difficult the situation is, but some others are awakened to the reality that they need to get in line.
Katherine, what do you tell the parents?
At Smith, we cultivate leadership for new fields. That's what we've done historically. This is a tremendously exciting one for us. And I should say, what do I say to the businesses that we talk to?
Right.
Also, when you diversify, who does something in your field, you accelerate innovation. There's a very close correlation between diversifying who practices a particular discipline or field and change in that field. And as Eduardo said, the biggest challenge we face in higher education is preparing students knowing that what they are going to need is always going to change. And that the pace of change is going to stay very rapid. It's not going to slow.
Fascinating, great discussion. Let's go, so let's go to my friend Brian right here. He's been, but we're going to give you a microphone. We have millions of math types watching you online.
I'm Brian, in case anybody doesn't know. I just wanted to make a comment, and this might make some people in the audience feel better. Our data science program, we designed it. It's in the arts and sciences department. Yeah, and it's 50% women. So we have almost 200 students, and half of them are women, and a 60% minority. So
let me ask you just a quick question, Brian. If in terms of looking at business and academic partnerships, is there anything you'd like to see tweaked that you think would improve the scene?
Tweeted? Specifically? Oh, tweaked. Yeah, I was going to have to come up with 140 words. I was going to.
No.
So to be honest, from our perspective, it's a bit of a mentality change amongst our faculty members. So we have a tendency to get a little isolated. So we like them. So as practice, we try and get outside the walls as much as possible. We do these types of things, and we have over the course of 2 years, we have partnerships with almost 50 companies. So all of the way to design the practicum for the students is that as a requirement, if it's possible, to partner with an outside company to use real-world data in order to be able to do that. So institutionally, I think, and you guys seem to be doing a great job of it as leaders, encouraging departments to kind of realize that those connections are beneficial, not only for the programs, but also for
That's fascinating
for the students.
Comment. Other questions, comments? Yes, this gentleman standing in the back. Right. Or we can go right here and then back to you. We'll just do, this is lightning round, so fast questions, fast answers.
Okay. Fast question. I'm Bob Hershey. I'm a consultant. I did a book called All the Math You Need to Get Rich, which has been used at University of New York. And doing great. 5 printings, translated into Japanese and Chinese. And it motivates people, showing what's in it for them.
Right.
And I wonder how you're using motivation in your programs.
Good, so let's hold that there. Let me get this gentleman over here that I,
Malcolm Barnes, Parity Press, and WPFW. I have a question for the provost from UMD. I did some work back in the first decade of the 2000s when entrepreneurship was the hot new trend.
Right.
And the strategy was a three-legged stool between engineering, business, and IT.
Right.
What seems to be missing in the talent gap that I'm seeing is that the young students coming out want to get into entrepreneurship. They want to become the producers. They want to become the Puffy Combs.
Yeah, short form.
But they lack the data analytics and how to monetize that. What is your program doing to address that?
Sure, and I'm president of
let me just get
UMBC.
One more
Yeah,
quick question. Let me take this gentleman here because then we're going to do
Okay.
a quick round robin,
Okay.
everybody. Sorry about that, Freeman.
Sure.
Apologize.
Hi, Juan Munoz Bielas. So I'm actually a recent graduate from Florida State University, and I'm an economist, but I saw a lot of lack of knowledge among the social sciences in the value of data analytics. And what you guys are doing for, reinforce or market these kind of things to the social sciences. Even among economists, it was something that,
So the value of analytics.
yes, like
So
to get more
it's
people
so
involved.
so let me go to all three of you, but it's a remarkable set of questions, which is really how do you, what's in it for them? How do you basically take entrepreneurs to so Freeman, I apologize for interrupting.
Sure.
but-
So we like saying UMBC is a place where math rocks. We really mean that. All right. We're one of the largest producers of kids who go to NSA. And what most people don't understand is mathematics, first of all, is a part of the liberal arts.
Right.
We don't realize that sometimes. It is a broad way of thinking. But more than that, getting to data science, I would say this about entrepreneurship. We got 100 companies on campus, biotech and IT companies, but many of them are cybersecurity companies. And places like Northrop Grumman actually work with us with entrepreneurs to start those companies. And many of them are involved in data science, working with all kinds of other companies. And it's the culture of the institution that makes the difference in social sciences. Have we had opportunities for faculty to go through professional development themselves, to look at best practices? And for us, it's across the curriculum that we're looking at data science, but also on decision-making on the campus. Most institutions have not looked at the big data involving their own campuses to know their students, to know the trends, to understand who's succeeding and who's not. The fact is, the probability of a student succeeding in data science at most places is very low because of the lack of sophistication in the programming or the need to rethink the teaching and learning process itself. So there's a need to rethink the culture, not just in our society, but on our campuses as we work with the different companies.
Katherine, your responses.
We've been thinking about that redesign of the teaching and learning at Smith for a really long time, and with a strong emphasis on ensuring that students of color, first-gen students coming in with an interest in STEM are going to be able to persist and perform as well as their peers who've had 4 years of high school math. And that's actually happening. So we're launching the major on top of a kind of deep investigation of how to change the curriculum to be inclusive and to ensure that success.
And is there on the entrepreneurship side and the the sort of personal, what's in it for me kind of thing? Are you able to answer both of these questions about their life ambitions and how this may pay off?
In a way, that's a question about faculty, right? Where is the faculty engagement? And for us, we have a hungry and driven student body that we need to meet where they are, and they have an appetite to be the people who will change the disciplines they go into. They see expertise, some programming, some statistical knowledge enlisted for a question they care about as enabling that goal. And so the faculty are motivated by that.
Eduardo, you get the last
In
word.
response to the question, as I said before, we believe that just having a baccalaureate in data science is not enough, that every discipline should be exposed to data science, and we're working to making sure that happens. In terms of your question about motivation, I think that something we didn't discuss, which I think is important, is pedagogy. We need to change the pedagogy that we're using, and one of the things that we're doing is putting a lot of emphasis on project-based learning, which means these companies give us problems to solve, the students work on them. There's no better way to engage the students in real-life scenarios to be able to solve problems and work with real problems. And that's another way in which the intersect between business and the university is extremely important, because that kind of collaboration allows our education to become alive and real.
I want to thank Eduardo Padrón, president of Miami-Dade College, Katherine Rowe, provost of Smith College, and Freeman Hrabowski, president of University of Maryland, Baltimore County. This is a really fun discussion. The app, where they can go to the App Store, what's it called? Luminary Shakespeare?
Luminary Shakespeare. It's in partnership
Does
with
it cost
Folger.
anything, or is it
You can find
free?
it on the Folger's website.
Is it free?
Oh, are you kidding? No.
Free. No? Oh, no. Sorry, guys.
I want you to go to the
price.
UMBC CDC. It stands for Chemistry Discovery Centers, and look at how we have redesigned teaching and learning, not only from chemistry, but all the way to the digital humanities. It's important to think about redesigning the teaching and learning process.
And go to
because
Miami-Dade
students
College,
are bored.
too, to make
They're
it
bored,
even.
all right?
Eduardo, thank you. Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Pleasure.